Good morning, this is Brian Whitten and ET Art, and we are back at the Serapeum with a final and correct analysis of what it's supposed to portray. Okay, I've looked at this for a long time, and there are a few things that have sort of made me, well, not quite 100% certain as to what was going on. I woke up yesterday, being Anzac Day, in the morning, and I woke up with a solution, and I'm in the without doubt. But there was one or two things that I needed to add further to the last video. Now we'll have a look at the rock, okay? And for any of those who haven't seen my videos to this point, there is one I'll put up called the programmable rock. As silly as it may sound, I'm just going to jump into what actually happens on that, and we'll watch it. Now I've just put this on here where we see this U automatically appear. I'll just go back here just a little bit so you can see that that comes back up on its own, and I'm not touching or doing anything near the rock. And in actual fact, I was walking away when this happened. I'll just pause that for a minute, because you'll see when I get up and walk away, you'll hear me turn around and say, you know, did that white line just come back? Because I had turned my back to the camera and was walking back towards, no, I should say, turned my back towards the TV and was walking back to my camera. So you'll listen to what I say. Did that white line just not come back whilst we were there? That's what I mean. Okay, you can see what happened. I wasn't looking at it when I turned around to walk away. But what I wanted to discuss with you here is what we're actually seeing. We're seeing, like I said, a lot of things they'll do will have more than one, one purpose. Certainly in the design of the buildings and everything that you seem to do, it has more than one function. What we're seeing here when they're doing this is they're saying, well, you were knocked down here, the planet, and we were coming up. And if you look at that, you are seeing a half of a loop on this part of that white line. Okay, so this part here, if you look at that white line, is a half a loop right there. And I wanted to show you that because that comes up first, and then this little pyramid line that says what happens at the pyramid. And maybe this goes to Australia, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm from Australia and I'm saying to you what the pyramid says here. Who knows? All I'm saying is that's what happened, but I wanted you to know and note that that's a half loop there on an angle. It's actually, when you look at that part of it, it is really a half a loop, and I wanted to show you that. And I'll go back to one other, the timing device that I said was at the Serapeum walls in Peru. Now I have an aerial view open of the Serapeum walls, but the area behind the walls where I believe this is the timing device. Okay, so in other words, how long, and if I'll just move out a bit so you can see that these were the walls here on this side were the ones that were recording the tilt of the line of longitude that was moved. In here what we're seeing is an outlay actually of the comets themselves, so the mass size of the one that hit the southern hemisphere that tilted the globe, this one here, and the mass size compared to that, we're seeing it compared in the area of that square. This is leading into here, and it leads to this mark, which is the very mark 32 degrees above the South Pole was where the comet hit that tilted the axis. So that line there is going directly to this one. And this one here, if you look in above it, it is the one that lands just above the Central American impact, and it too is depicted as being on that line very close to this, representing the Earth in that instance. But what I wanted you to note is that we come in here, and from this point a downward motion is this way. And we are going around here, and we are seeing 6. What we're seeing here is a record of the transition of the movement of our regular plane, which is in line with the sun, down to the other plane. So in other words, we're being knocked off the plane which is the plane that we are in plane with the sun, and that is where we are getting told it was knocked off. Okay, it was this comet that knocked us downward, which is why the movement here is this way, and we were knocked downward for 6,000 years to complete the cycle that is shown in the Serapeum. This one here, I won't go into that, but I know why that is there. That is an actual fact. The 4,000 of the 6,000 years it took to do the other cycle, because the other cycle, there's another time that this has happened where the planet has been put on this rotation. This rotation of the planet around the sun is not natural. We are actually still on a not natural path around the sun even now. Okay, I know I'm not a planetary scientist, but I don't mean to be disrespectful to those people that are. The movement of the line, the plane of our planet around the sun, is over 6,000 years to do a half of a loop. It's such a minute thing. We're only talking about us having the technologies to understand our planet's movement for not so long anyway. So to have a real grasp of what it's actually doing, you need to have your sampling and knowledge of the the astrology that we have has got to be a long-term thing for us to be able to detect these minor changes. So it is not said with disrespect to any of you blokes that do have PhDs in all of the sciences required to understand what I'm talking about, but I'm merely portraying to you the message that is left us on this planet, and it is left here very, very precisely. And this is actually what this is doing. It's saying we are being knocked down. When we're knocked down, we are not in plane with the sun, and we do a rotation I'll show you in a minute a gyroscope, and I'll show you a picture and I'll show you how the rotation occurs. But we're saying it takes 6,000 years and it only does half a loop. It doesn't go there forever. So where we are taught 27,000 years is the length of the precession of the planet, that is, albeit it may be correct, whilst we're on a plane that is not on plane with the sun, but it is not correct. As soon as you hit the other plane, I will show you where the Serapeum says it changes. Before I go away from here as well, I would like you to note that what we're actually seeing in the area here is also the timing of the comets, which comet hit first and whatnot, by the way these are set up here, because there were 4 comets that hit in the southern hemisphere, created by the one big comet here, right? And this one up here broke into 3, and they weren't big. Like, there was a couple of smaller comets there, but it's basically telling you the timing here between the lines on the walls here is telling you which comets hit when and where. Okay, that's exactly what that's doing. So where these lines line up, it's letting you know which comets hit at what time to create the velocity required. But like I said, it was not a natural rotation around the sun. It was put on that by the manner in which these comets hit the planet, and it left us driving down. Now I'll go and get the other image. I'll pull up and I'll show you that. This is probably the best way for me to show you what I mean by the way the planet was moved. In the event, like I said, 6,000 years ago, the planet was actually spinning around the sun in the opposite direction. Just say for the sake of it, the planet is coming this way, okay, around the sun, and the sun is the very point in here, and we are rotating around like this, and we get to this point here, and this is where the comet hits us. Okay, and I know this is attached here, but we'll just pretend it isn't. Okay, when this comet hits us, it doesn't start putting the sun or the planet around the sun in that direction. What it does is it starts letting this plane that the planet is on move. Right, so our plane, instead of being steady here, the planet's plane is moving like this. Okay, and what happens is we do in a period of 6,000 years, where we are struck here coming this way, right, we then rotate this way, around like that, and that takes 6,000 years, and by then our planet is actually going around the sun in the opposite direction. Right? That's exactly what happens, and it happens because you only do half a cycle. So, like I said, the pyramid says our planet 6,000 years ago was going around the sun in the opposite direction. And that is why I could never understand why we had a full loop in the Serapeum. So I'll go back to the Serapeum and I'll show you what it displays. Now we're back at the Serapeum and I'll show you what it is displaying. That the planet's motion around the sun was in this direction, in this way, okay? And then it gets hit by the comets, the last lot of comets that created and separated the Australian continent from Asia. It doesn't drive the planet, like I said, down and around the sun this way. It drives the plane down and the plane back up. And when it comes back up, when the plane comes back up here, is why you see this going back in this direction. I've always wondered why, how I can be coming back up when I've been knocked down. I should be coming down to join the plane. It's because this is a historical event here. This is actually the time prior, and I could put that little, my microscopic rock in there again and show you the two white marks that I said left, and I said that could be that there is a representation on a stone of an Aboriginal woman smiling at the UFOs when they got here for this event on my rocks. That can only happen if it's happened before. She can only be smiling if she knows they've been there before to help her. She knows why they're there. And she is once again being persecuted, I would expect, and this would be the time prior. But this is the time we're talking about now, and which is why we're seeing the planet move in this direction. The comets do their stuff here. The 12,000 years that I thought were not 12,000, these are only 12 to give us a more accurate time on how long it takes for the planet 24 degrees axis to change once it comes back up here in line and plane with the sun, because that's what's happening here. When it comes back up and it comes back in line with the plane of the sun, and it does it right to the very point of getting into the plane of the sun, right? So as soon as you get to this point, as soon as you get to the plane, this is where it marks the time from. And this is why they divided this into 12 as well, like I said, to give us a more accurate time. And if it's over 6,000 years, which you've already established in multiple places and on the parchment, that it was 6,000 years that the cycle took, that we are at the end of the cycle. We are coming up to the plane with the sun. We think we're going that way. We are, because we're coming up this side. We're coming up this side here and going in that direction. But as soon as we hit the plane with the sun, with this now being 500 years for each one of these boxes in the Serapeum being representative for 500 years, we are now saying it took 500 years to go from here out to there, or 500 years to go here out to there. That means that when we're coming back here, our timing for a 24 degrees is from here to here, because this is the 8 degrees tilt being recorded here on the axis. So this is where we straighten up, and this period of time is from there to there, and that's a little over 100 years, 150 years at most, to go from there to there, because this is 500 from this period here. So we are talking about a transition of axis here. We are talking about getting locked in with the plane with the sun, and we're talking about it happening very, very quickly, and we're talking about it happening very, very soon, actually, and that's what the Serapeum says, and that is probably why I've had to tell you all these things, I guess. It seemed to me to be an urgent thing, and the realization of why all this is the way it is. Like I said, you can argue all you want. I'm just merely reading from here, not out of a history book. This is the best history book I've got to go by the look of it. And like I said, and once we've made this transition here, we are then, these are 500-year allotments for the angles to get back to, you know, and like I said, this is following more of a, I guess, Fibonacci's curve, or the golden number, or whatever it is, when it comes back into cycle, when it finally finishes and stands up straight. But this is very, very quick here. So that's what I wanted to put up in this video today. It is solved. That is exactly what that does, and I couldn't understand, like I said, this here is definitely a historical event. You get a portion of it, like I said, 4,000 years of that one is still recorded at the other site. So in actual fact, the comets, that I'm not going to go back and worry about that. I do realise what this is now, and that was what was throwing me. I couldn't understand why I was seeing a full cycle here, but we're not. We're only seeing a half cycle. This is the historical other occasion. And the other occasion, it was sent up over the top, not down around the bottom. So this time it's gone down around the bottom, and we're coming up to, we're about to join the plane with the sun. And what happens, we are at 24 degrees, right? We are right there now. And what happens as soon as we hit that plane, the sun immediately, and because the transitional movement through the or past the sun is so slow, because it takes 6,000 years for it to do a full cycle. As soon as it locks in with the plane with the sun, it starts getting, you know, pulled up like this. And as I thought it was not fast, but it is in actual fact very, very quick. And we are moving from 24 degrees to 8 in that period of time, when that is 500 years. So maybe 150, we're certainly going to be seeing the effects very, very quickly here. Remembering that this is the time, not the angle. Okay, so if this is the time, one would assume in half that time, say less than 100 years, we'll go from 24 to down to here somewhere, you know. But this is going to be very quick. It's going to say the time is from here to here, so it's less than 150 years. We will be at 8 degrees, and our cities will be somewhat inundated with water. Look, there is really no choice. CO2 is not the problem we've got here. We have to use salt water. We have to start using hydrogen, and the best way, you're using hydrogen for everything, you know, cooking, our cars. We've got to make sure that the salt water we use in a way, and however we do it has got, you know, it's a sensible way of doing things, you know. We need to be starting to use as much salt water as possible. This process is 150 years. We're going to start having to move real quick. I do want to follow one more thing up on the pyramid complex before I go, because I want to go and write my book now and finish that. I just want to be 100% right with what goes in the book. I'm 100% certain what I've just told you the Serapeum depicts is exactly correct, 100%. I'll go and have a look at the top forecourt now, because I did have something there that is incorrect, and I'll just briefly point that out. Yeah, I just wanted to bring this up shortly. It's where I said that I suspected we were looking at, you know, what was a predictive event. We still have, I believe, a predictive event depicted at Carillon, but where I was reading that in here, I was probably incorrect in my opinion. I'm going to re-look at this and probably do it again, but I think what we're actually seeing here, why we've got these boxes in a straight line, is it's implying the plane with the sun, and this is the thousands of years prior to the comet impact, right? And this may be, like I said, just saying when Nibiru was here this time and this time, just like it is over in the other side. But what we're actually recording here is the movement out of the plane, because as much as it's 24 degrees this way, it's 24 degrees between this line and there and there and there is also 24 degrees. And I think what we're actually seeing here is a record of how long we were off the plane. This is the plane of the sun being recorded here, so we're saying we were off the plane of the sun. And if you look from that line there to back in here where it joins back to this line again, that is an actual fact where we're actually marking it. So it's 6,000 years here as well. that it's recording as that we were off this plane. So that's what I think that's actually recording there. It's recording the time of length, or the time that we were on the other plane as well. I will reassess that when I put book. The book will reflect that correctly by the time I get to that. I'm 100% happy with the way the Western Mastaba feels, although, like I said, now knowing that we were not looking at a 600 years, we would now have to look at these and the value of these 6 boxes here to be not reflective of what was down, to this point I don't know how long it's taken to get out there to 24 degrees at this point. I'll be honest with you. I know we got to 10 in a hurry. I might look at that, and if there is an answer in that, will also be in the book. But that's what I wanted to show you, that would also be changing the time frame here. I've always, like I said, because of those 12 boxes, thought it was 12,000 years, and was probably more led astray by what we thought the precession was of the planet. Obviously the precession of the planet isn't continuous of 27,000 years. As soon as you get in plane with the sun, as the pyramid would indicate, it changes very, very rapidly. I just want to go back to the Serapeum, just zoomed into the bottom loop, okay, of what we're doing there. I'll just minimize that just a tad so you can see that we are getting pushed down, and once we are getting pushed down, we are counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 years. That's the loop, and then the return back into the plane with the sun, going in the opposite direction, as I said, than what we were. But because we've only done 1/2 loop, if we did a full loop, we would then take up going in the same direction, but that doesn't happen. As soon as we cross the plane with the sun, the 24 degree tilt on our axis, because it takes so long to cross that plane, it is a long time, hundreds of years, is enough to go and stand us up straight to the point. We get to a point of in angle change where we're not released, we will be retained here, and that's what the Eye of Horus, like I said, tells us in the event. It was a lesson in planetary science when they crashed these 2 comets to our planet, what would appear to be now 6,000 years ago. So 3,000 years ago here, which is 1,000 years before Christ, if this is the situation, 1,000 years before Christ, there was very little of the planet whilst we were down here that you could habitate very, very well. And I'm not saying you couldn't. I would say that the northern parts of Australia and anywhere in the tropics would explain quite why we've got a lot of cave dwellings around the premises, and big caves. Maybe there were people trying to protect themselves or whatever was happening at the time. Now I just wanted to show you this report that says, why is the moon getting further away from Earth? Listen, as we approach the plane with the sun and our axis starts to straighten up, there's going to be a lot happen. One would assume this is already starting to happen. If we're getting a reduction in the axis of the planet, they did say in this it was the speed of the Earth that had slowed just ever so slightly, that had made the moon move further away. The Earth cannot slow even so slightly without that angle changing, so the angle of our axis may already be beginning to change from what was 24 degrees to less. I think it's 23.4, or that might be what it was originally, but certainly once it approaches the plane, it calculated in 50 to 70 years we would be at a 12 degree tilt on the axis. What we need to do when we run this through the modelling, because this is going to happen, if it's at the pyramid, it will be correct. Okay, that's the situation. The pyramid is going to be correct here, ladies and gentlemen. It isn't me telling you that I'm correct. It's me telling you that the pyramid will be correct. And it's just a matter of understanding what it's there for and understanding why it's there. And it is a thing with this being what is going to happen with the tides of the earth when this happens. Where are the water? Where's the water going to sit? You know, just from the rotation, even not worrying about the melt of the ice, because I'm telling you, when this straightens to 8 degrees, there will be no sea ice at either pole. It's impossible for that to exist. That's why I'm saying we have no choice here. It has to be hydrogen that we use because we can extract it from the salt water. We have to make some sensible plans. Mass extinction is not one of them. If that is the option of the world's leaders, that's not necessarily the right approach here. It's just a matter of understanding what is happening, and it's not a one world government that's going to resolve this issue. It is a one world that work together to understand the problem and how to inform each other how best to get around the problem. That's what's going to help us here. The other alternative is not an alternative, okay? That's not going to be what's going to happen. We need to approach this very, very sensibly. We need to do some modelling, get this put through so that we get a really, really quick understanding as to actually what's going to happen and the best way to combat it. And I'm not kidding. The land ice is not a worry at the moment. It is the sea ice. We've also got to take into account that any ice in the sea, if it all melted, in actual fact is not going to raise the level. It's the ice above the sea level. That is a problem. All the ice in the ocean, if it melts, it actually would decrease it because the ice takes up 10% more space than it would if it was water. So that's not an issue. We've got to take all that into account as well. When we look at that, it's the land or the ice that is above the ocean in, like where it's up in the valleys, in the big, big glaciers that are still got, 1,000 foot of ice over 20 foot of water. That's the sort of thing that's going to be a problem. They're the sort of things that will melt away very, very rapidly, and like I said, we're already starting to see that. It is not CO2 that's causing the issues. In actual fact, if we're starting to come back up and playing with the sun. That sort of brings us to the end of the video now, so I thought I'd just have a chat again, as I do on some of the videos. Look, it's a pretty daunting thing what we've learnt today, and it was in this very lounge room here. If you haven't watched my other videos, you will have, I actually looked up and asked for another job. I'd actually tried to do something for 18 years, and it was trying to address matters. I won't go into that in this video either, but it was 18 years. I got the job, and the job was solve the pyramid somehow. Like I said, I don't know how I've ended up in the position I'm in. I just deal with what's in front of me. So that's done. I've solved, I think, the part of the pyramid that I needed to let everybody know about, and the predicament that our planet is facing. The pyramids won't be wrong. I'm just reading what it says there to you. There are two matters of concern, obviously. One would be what you as leaders would do with such information. I would expect that this global depopulation plan that you may have in your strategy may end up being if that happens, quite a different population that gets depleted here. I would think very, very wisely about that before I made any decisions. What we need here is not a global government. What we need here is a global effort. We need global understanding and global awareness, and that's the only way that we will get around the problem we've got now. There's a lot of us on the planet, yes, but understanding what's going to happen is where we will meet and confront that. We have got on that parchment that I've showed you in the last video 12,000 years, well, in one direction and 24 in the other direction, and we've just come up to the plane going as we are from left to right around the sun, so I'm saying 24,000 years. I would suggest very, very strongly any leaders really seriously think what put us on that rotation. It was not, as we've seen with the Mayan gods or anybody else, or the Mayan civilization, this theory or something that people started sacrificing other people to appease the gods. I tell you now, that was not what was going down. They were not appeasing their gods, they were appeasing themselves. And what they call the gods, or the people that brought the comets here, did so exactly for that reason. It was the behaviour of those on our planet. It is hard to, I suggest if you haven't watched 9 from 9, go and watch it. It is difficult to say that that is not a human body draped over a table, and it is human sacrifice. That is the problem. It was the problem that put our planet on the rotation it is just about to finish. It is unlikely that they're going to sit here and let 24,000 years without doing the same thing, without making sure that practice is not on this planet. We are going to approach 24,000 years of mankind learning how to protect his planet. That's why all this is here. So I would suggest very strongly, if you are thinking the mass extermination and such of the human race is the way around the problem of the rising ocean, that is not going to be the answer. And if that is the answer you take as leaders, I would expect their intervention pretty quickly. Leaving that aside, we have now got to look at the problem we've got with the planet. It's got, if we're looking at 50 to 75 years now time, the axis moving to where I said it's going to go, where the pyramid says it's going to go, would be less than 12 degree tilt on the axis in less than about 70 years. We need to assess very, very carefully how much melt we're going to have off the poles, especially the South Pole. Sea ice shouldn't be an issue. Anything in the ocean, when it melts, is 10% less volume than what was there as ice, so that's not going to be a problem. It's going to be where you've got shallow oceans with thousands of feet of ice above it. That is the melt. Land ice is not an issue either. That is why I strongly suggest, and I did, ironically, quite a few years back, put a video up on my old channel about the use of hydrogen and a hydrogen implementation plan. Listen, I would think hydrogen generated using sound would be the most economical way of doing it, and using other, like I said, tidal flow and whatnot to create the energy. But we need to be using hydrogen. We need to be using the salt water, and we need to be using a lot of it, and we need to be using it very, very quickly. We need to, like I said, the idea of keeping this understanding of the pyramid quiet and not allowing it to be put into the hands of people that are very qualified, far more than I, to, and like I said, I don't mean to do or put a video up like this to turn my back on the planetary scientists and physicists that we have at all, because the rotational speed of this is so slow, and we have not had the technologies to really understand what was going on until just recently anyway, and the sampling and the timing to know what was going on is just not there, because we haven't had the length of time to do it. Listen, I'm telling you what the pyramid says has happened. And I won't be wrong. I've looked at that long and hard, and I understand fully what it's doing, and that is what it's happened. It's not just recorded there, it's recorded, like I said, it's the Saxahuman walls as well, so it is a thing that has happened. We are just now approaching the end of it, and as soon as we hit the plane with the sun, our traverse across it is slow enough for the axis to immediately start straightening up, and that's what happens. We are not going anywhere but that way, and we're going to go around the sun in that direction for 24,000 years, it says on that parchment. So I would expect we're going to be, in this next 24,000 years, like I said, be a race of people that finally do leave our planet, and this is the 24,000 years where it's going to happen. I do say that there is still a predictive event at Carrion. Those rocks at Carrion should not be disturbed for any reason whatsoever. It is absolutely critical that they stay there. That is depicting an event that hits Central Australia. I've got to look into that more now because I thought that was being depicted at the pyramid. I've explained to you where I've made a little bit of a blue there, but as far as the Serapeum is concerned and the whole complex, that is what it's doing, and I will fix up that last bit like I said before I put the book up, and I'm going to go back to writing that book now, but like I said, I still wish that the officialdom, you know, it shouldn't be me. I'm not the person that should be doing that book, even though I might be the one that understood that. I may not be the only person that knew what was going to transpire. I don't know. All I'm saying is my understanding of the Serapeum and the pyramid and why it's there will not be wrong, and we have not got, I'm not here to do this job for 18 years. My job now, solve the pyramid and tell you, is done. That's a finished task. The urgency is on your doorstep now, not mine. So you best start moving, and that's what needs to be done. And I say that with respect, although I don't show a lot to, only because of the past 18 years of inaction, so that is not met by every member of Parliament, but probably a greater majority, I don't know. But anyway, that's just the way life is, I guess, and you may look and think, why me? I may think, why me? That's irrelevant as well. It is just me, and that's what's going down here. So we need to look at what we've got to do. We have to solve the problem. We have to analyse what is going to happen. And like I said, we need to have a very, very, very informed public, because sometimes the answers to the questions are in people you're keeping secrets from, and you cannot afford to do that, and we cannot afford to do that at the moment. Education to the level of everything that we've learned. If everything we've learned about the pyramid today, and everything and everybody on the planet knew that the rocks at our feet are telling the same story in their billions, I wonder what sort of planet it was we would live on, you know? How would it be? How much different would it be if that, as a reality, was real and true and known? And yet, like I said, from a faith point of view, it's not a real issue, because the situation is the people that came here come to save us. They don't come here to kill humanity, they come to save humanity, which means we are far, far more, like I said in another video, than just chunks of meat walking around on a couple of legs, because there is far more to humans than that. So I hope you enjoy this video. It is the last one I'll make for a bit, because I do want to get that book made. Or I should say typed. I'm getting there. I wasn't in a rush to do this bit either, because there were still a little few things that were unclear, and I don't want to put what I want to put in the pyramid book until I'm 100% correct. And like I said, though, I'm 100% sure now of both the forecourt. I'm 100% sure that is just showing the movement away from the plane for the 6,000 years that we left, where I thought it was a comet impact, that's all. Where that comet impact in the Central Australia and how far away that is, I don't know. If I come by way of that, you know, this is why I wanted to do the study on the rocks, because to see whether or not this microscopic, you know, it's not an imaginary thing here. It's on all of the rocks that I go and go to. You can't see it under a normal microscope. So we need to assess whether that is a worldwide thing, or whether it is just on the east coast of Australia depicting that event in Central Australia, as in it comes in that way and chucks all the rocks over this side. I don't know. It could be. I would expect it to be worldwide, to be honest. So we probably need to know whether or not these microscopic images are on, you know, rocks in other areas on the globe. That's what I would really like to find out. I've tried to communicate through social media. I would imagine, like I said, it's being manipulated one way or another. It really is fruitless exercise really. This needs to be done, so it isn't a good decision either. Look, that's like I said, that'll finish off this video now. I will go back to writing the book, and I thank you very much for your time. This is Brian Whitten at ET Art. Have a nice day, and like I said, don't worry too much. Just a matter of combined effort, combined knowledge, and with that will become a combined solution. See you later.